Good morning everyone and welcome back to Craft Eccentricity, and today is tutorial day. Yep, it's Tuesday. So I got a design team haul yesterday from AlinaCraft, and we're going to be using a couple or even three of those things today. And I'm going to be using my little trusty silicone mats from Aliexpress. I'm going to be using some watercolor cardstock, really cheap. You can see that, $1.99. That's from a store called Ollie's Outlet, and it's very useful just for doing, little bits and pieces that you want to watercolor. So I'm going to pop that down, and then my dies that I'm using are the Mermaid. Oh, lovely bright sunshine. These sequins, I may keep them that colour or I may change them. And this slimline die, which also has this sort of like fish scaly top, but I want to do it in a different way. So I don't want to do a shaker. I know I want some layers. And even though she's a pretty mermaid, I don't want to do it too pretty. Right, so we're going to do it grown up, or attempt to do it grown up. Horrible word, that, grown up. Going to be using walnut ink crystals. If you're somebody who's into junk journaling or anything like that, you want to throw away your coffee and your tea and you want to get some of these. They will last you for life. And having said that, I've got 3 pots of them. I don't know why I've got 3 pots of them, because one pot will quite literally last you for life. And walnut ink crystals are gorgeous things. I'm also going to be using brushos. Now, this is a large box of brushos, and I think it's probably the biggest in the set. And as you can see, it's used and loved over the years. I've got yuck all over the tops. But I think out of this box here, because we're doing sea fishy, I'm just sort of like scanning around at colours here. I'm going to go for the sea green. Yeah, that's what I'm going to go for. I'm going to go for the sea green in that box, which has got sort of like plenty of tone in there to make it interesting. And that is what's going to be mixed with the walnut ink crystals. So I'll put the lid on this before I drop it on the floor. And as you can see, when you get them, you just pierce a hole in the top. I used a pokey tool, and then you just shake a little bit out. It's highly pigmented. But you'll see that in a second. Right, and we're going to colour the sheet of paper from which the tail and one of the bases of this die is going to be cut out. So first of all, I'm going to sort of like clear my desk. I'm going to do some die cutting of some bits, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I tidied up and got to doing a couple of things, and one of them is I cut my sheet of watercolour cardstock so that my background die will fit onto there. I've grabbed myself a couple of pads of kitchen paper, and I am sharing my glorious sunshine with you. And I've got my squirty bottle. This is just from Walmart. Really cheap, but it works. So the first thing you want to do with watercolor paper is you want to prime it. So I'm just gently going over this and squirting it, which obviously means that when I finish doing whatever it is that I'm doing, oh, look at that, a little bit of brush I've got down there already. So I'm just gently moistening the paper, and I've got puddles and bits everywhere. Right, now we're going to unscrew the cap on the walnut ink crystals, and you can see it looks like, I don't know, gunky coffee grains. You only need a tiny pinch. Watch this. So I've dropped that down roughly where I want it. Yeah, I'll go quiet when I'm having fun. And you can see that is starting to spider out. That is not necessarily the desired effect that I'm going for, but I will get up this excess water here just to stop that from running where I don't want it. And I'm going to add a little bit more water just to start to push it out. I'll let that soak in the paper. I'm going to say 60 seconds and I'll be right back. Right, I think that that's had enough time, and you can, because you've got sort of like sufficient water on here, you can sort of like manipulate those runs and drips, and then you just go in with your kitchen paper. Now, if you left that to dry naturally, it would dry extremely dark, but you can see I'm lifting it. I just want the look of aged paper, and you can see my kitchen paper there is all getting, you know, so it looks like it's got those speckles of age in it, and I will pick it up and show it to the camera in a second. Right, I want to leave that area a bit dark, so I'm going to now fix that, and I'm just grabbing my heat gun, and if it makes too much noise I do apologise. So I'll heat this off camera and come back. Right, so that's all nice and dry, and you can see, I'm going to go really close, the effect that you've got is aged worn paper. Now when you dry it, it does kind of like curl up on itself a bit, but that's okay because it's going to be die cut, and it's going to have foam pads on it, so that will flatten it out. Right, the next thing that I want to do is I want to go in with my brusho, and I'm creating a background, and hopefully I can get the fishtail out of this as well. So I need to think about where I'm putting my colour. So I'm just a little bit to begin with, because you can always add more, but you can't take it away. That's what they say, isn't it? Now with your brusho, just turn it upside down. Just tip out a little bit that you need into those wet areas. And if you overdo it, you'll start to see it should run and drip. I can see where I've put my water, and I'm just sprinkling that down. Right, and now we want to get a little bit more movement with that. As I put that down there, you can start to see it. You'll start to see all the other colours come out of it as well, because it's sort of like, it's a mix of yellow, blue and green. So we're starting to see that, and that looks really pretty, but I'm not quite having it that dark. I'm still using the same gunky piece of kitchen paper, and I'm just soaking up the water from around the edges here. I've let that soak in for a little bit, and I'm just going to touch it gently. So I'm just lifting a little bit and transferring it elsewhere. So we've got that mingling in. So a little bit vintage and a little bit soft. I hope that's not too blurred. Got this weird weather. We just had bright sunshine, so I sort of like curled my blinds up a bit, and now it's going dark, like it's about to start raining, and I've got paler yellowy greeny bits going on there. Right, I'm going to dry this, grab my heat doodah, and I'll be right back and see if it needs anything else. Right, so that's done, and let's get in and have a close-up. See, you've got those really lovely colours that come out of the brusho. Try not to make you seasick. And from this now, I'm going to go and cut my background piece and also the mermaid's tail, and I'll be right back. Right, so I've done my die cutting, and here's what I've got. I'll put it that way around. I've cut a white base. I've cut the mermaid scale piece in a sort of like sea greeny blue glitter. That's from a cardstock from Joanne, and that's going to go there. And then this is the top piece that we've coloured. Now what I'm going to do, the reason I didn't pop this out is because I want to tear a hole in this. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tear a hole in it and pop it up on foam pads. And this is the mermaid pieces. So that's the hair. Whoops, pick the little bits up. And then that's her fringe, which goes over there. So she's got gorgeous hair. And then she's got a body, which of course will pop underneath the head. And then the fishtail that I cut with another piece of the paper, so that she's kind of tying in there. And I also did her crown from a scrap. So we've got the same colours going on there. And there's my phone again. And then she's got her seashells, which actually go the other way around. I'll just pause and be back. Okay, I had to answer the phone. And I'm going to pick this up so that you can see. You can see all the different colours we've got going on there. Now, I'm not quite sure yet if I'm not going to put glossy accents on the tail. If I do that, it's something that I'll do, and I'll have to come back when it's dry. But I am somebody who likes to have, you know, different textures and stuff. Okay, the Little Mermaid's bra, I believe, goes like that. And she certainly doesn't have a crown on her head like that. Otherwise, she looks like she's just finished a bottle of wine. But anyway, those are my die cuts. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to glue the mermaid together. And I'm going to do it the same way as I always do it, which is with my Dollar Tree Jot Glue and my lovely pickup tool if I need it. Just moving my scissors out of the way. Right, so first of all, I'm going to pop the fringe onto the head. And I hope you can see this. And I'm just going to put glue just on the front part, because there's certain ways of actually doing paper piecing dies that you start to learn, especially with the paper that you're using. And that's really how the seams of things can start to show up through different types of quality cardstock. Like this one that I'm using isn't necessarily a good cardstock, this black stuff. I've told you about this before. It's from Joann's. Don't buy it. Right, so she's got her little fringe on there, and then I'm going to need to pop the body underneath. Now, of course, this is another area where it can get a bit messy, because I've got glue down there on the neck, but is it going to show up through the head? And I'm afraid we're just going to have to pop her down and find out. So there she is with her head on her body and her fringe, and then this whole thing is lifted up and placed onto the hair, really where you want her. She can go right up to the top like that. Let me pick that up for you. Or you can move her down slightly so that she's got more of a layer at the back. But I think I'm going to pop her right at the top, which means I can just put my glue here. I'm just putting a little bit around there. I never really like to fully fasten everything down until I know that I'm finished, because you never know when you want to pop something in there, around it, inside it. You know what I mean. Right, I'm going to go for that. So she's got this huge billowing section of hair coming out from the right of her. Now, you can, if you want to, twist that so that she's more even. And you can go like that, so she's kind of like centre of her hair. And now I've pressed it down. That's the direction that I'm going to have to go in. Right, I'm just going to glue her tail on and her little bra and crown, and I will be straight back. I decided she needs a bit of blush on her cheeks, and I've still got some mica powder left on here, so I'm just going to add just a small rosy glow at the bottom there, just to give her a little bit of character, because she's got quite a demure expression, something I've never had. So I don't know if you can see that she's got just a little bit of blush there at the bottom of her cheeks. You can see how I've popped a bra on. I've done it at an angle and I've only glued it at the bottom, so you can see it's actually got a sort of like dimensional angle to it. And then the crown, using that little scrap of the paper that I coloured. And then there's her tail. Now, I haven't done it in glossy accents, obviously, you can see that, but it would look fabulous like that. It would just give an extra little bit of something. So the next thing is doing the base. Now, doing the base and being brave, because you can see I've only popped a little bit out, and the whole thing is going to sit onto here. But I need to figure out where she's going to be in the scheme of things. And there's such a large amount of space in this area that I might actually use a stamp. See how much space there is. But first of all, I need to tear it. Yeah, I know. That's the scary part, tearing it. So I'm just going to get my scissors. Yeah, we figured out where she's going. She's going dead center. Do not stab yourself if you're doing stuff like this. And I've got my hole, and it's just going to be big enough. I'm doing a sort of like cross pattern here. I don't want it to be perfect at all. Just big enough to get my finger in, and if I turn it over, you can see right there. And shame on me, I am poking my finger in. And here we go. Now, I would suggest tearing slowly, because you do want a large area and you don't want it to sort of like tear off and be final, if you know what I mean. You don't want it to come off. You want to keep that torn bit there. So I'm torn there. I'll tell you one of the things I've always wanted, some of those tearing rulers, and I think that might be the next thing that I treat myself to. Because when you do stuff like this, you want it to be, you know, kind of roughly where you want it. So I'm tearing there, and I don't want to go off the edge. And I'm also going to tear that to there. Now I want to come down here. And I know that I want to come down here. So there you see, we've completely destroyed what we did. And I'm going to get my tool for poking, and I'm going to curl it. I'm going to curl it right out of the way. I've got an explosion. Oh, this is quite an interesting tear, actually. You never know what you're going to end up with. So we've got that. And we've also got that. And if you find that your bits are just too big, I would suggest shortening them. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So that one is just too big for me. So I'm going to get rid of that bit. And I'm getting rid of that bit. I get rid of that bit. And I'm also getting rid of that bit. And now I'm going to curl down again. That's better. I'm just going to pause a minute while I go and get my Distress Walnut Stain. Right, so I've got that, and I've got my blending tool, just regular Distress ink. And I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to flatten out those bits, because I can see what is what now. You can see I've got that lovely torn hole. And I'm just going to grab some ink onto my blending tool, and then just gently I'm going to sweep those edges that are going to be curled over. I think I've got a little bit of black soot on this blending tool as well, which doesn't bother me. I think it's quite nice. I'm trying to be, as I said earlier, a bit grown up with my with my mermaid. So I want some good saturation on those torn edges, and you usually find the thinner that your paper is towards an edge, the more ink it will attract, and that can look really, really nice. Right, I think we have it. So that's basically what I've done there, and I might actually try and scoot along the edges. Of course, you can do this in whatever colour you want to. You could use peacock, which would be complementary, but I'm going with walnut stain because I've used a lot of that on the surface. Right, so that looks all dirty and grungy, which is lovely, and now I can flip it over, and I'm going to do these bits as well, because you never know what bits you might end up seeing and which bits you might not. So better to do your bits is what I say. Now I should be able to curl this again, and the curl will not be as extreme as last time, and I should be able to just fix it down. And bring that piece over here so that I've got that tear, but through that tear, and this is why I didn't poke it all out, you're going to see your glitter. See, these couple of pieces need tearing out, but then I can just trim that down and just glue it into the aperture. So you can see I'm going to bend some of those. I can see some white bits that I don't really like, so put that to there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ink up my white bits, and I'll be right back. Right, so I've done that, and I'm quite happy with that now. You can see it looks like one big scruffy tear. Now I've decided that this is the bottom of my piece and this is the top of my piece, and I'm using this stamp from this set that I got from, I'm trying to think, I think it was Michael's. They were doing them for like $3 a set or something. And I'm going to use some VersaFine Clair. I've got a AlinaCraft stamp block here, and I'm just going to stamp Funshine in the top right corner, and I'm going to turn it around or even upside down to do it so that I can see it, and I basically know where I want it to go. But I'm just inking up my stamp and putting plenty on, because with silicone stamps the ink can pool. So I do apologise if you can't see all this at the moment, but that's because I need to see. Right, just give that a squeeze. Right, so I've got Funshine up there, which I just think suits it. And of course I still have the sequins that Alina sent, which I do intend to use on here as well. So I'll just move that stamp block out of the way, and now I need to trim and see if I need to poke out any more before I cut myself a piece of the mesh that is going to go behind. So if I flip that over, I can basically see what I need to do, and any bits that's left I could probably use those as well. So first of all, I'm going to cut this off here. I'm just going to go right the way across. I'm going to rest that, see how that is within the gap, and then better to leave yourself too much than not enough. And that is going to fill that hole there, and I will trim the border off as well. And then I'm going to use some foamy tapey pads there from Dollar Tree, and that is going to sit behind that window. Yeah, that's exactly how it's going to go. And it's going to be elevated, I think. Or maybe not. That's going to be flat, and then the base is going to be elevated. Right, I'm going to trim the edge off this and use my foamy pads, and I'll be back. Right, just a quick share of what I'm doing here, and I've got some glue down. I've got this down. I'm making sure my stamp is at the top, yes. And this is the direction that I want this to go in. And I'm just popping that down. Now, I will actually use my kitchen paper so that I'm not getting totally messy. Right, so there's some glue holding that around the hole, and the next thing for me to do is to just go in with my foam, I almost said phone then, and pop those on there, and that's going to also assist in holding that down. Right, I'm just going to finish off going over the entire back with foam pads, and I'll be back. So I've got all of my foam pads on the back. There they are. I even managed to use up some of my scrap ones. I hope my camera's not too blurred. And basically that's what I've got. And also these little scrap pieces from trimming this down, I trimmed that piece which I'm going to put on the bottom, and that's the area where I'm going to be using my sequins as well. So I'm actually going to glue that down onto here. This now needs to have all of those foam pads peeled off, and it will go onto the white mounts that we also cut, which is exactly the same size, and I will be right back. Right, so card base is all finished. Everything is stuck down there. You can see all of those foam pads that I put in behind. This is now elevated off the surface of the white, but that white behind just brightens it so that you can sort of like see a bit more. And then that little bit of scrap stuck to the bottom there, which is where I'm going to put some of those sequins. So I hope that you can see as much as I can fit in there. And I'm going to put double-sided foam pads onto the back of the mermaid. Now, it doesn't matter how close to the edges or not that I go with this, because I'm not going to be putting anything else down with her. I'm going to do one here that will just catch the tail and the hair, because you don't want things to sort of like come off, because people do like to play with their cards. And I'm going to leave these areas alone. I'm just going to peel these off now and decide where about in that torn window that I want to put her. Now you could of course go to greater creativity and turn this section into a shaker, because all you would have to do there is put a sheet of acetate underneath and foam all the way around underneath that, and you could fill that area alone with sequins. But because she's sort of like going to be partially covering that, as you can see that bit there, but it's kind of like deciding where you're going to have her. I think I'm going to go there. I'm going to pop her down. So she's got those torn shredded bits to the side of her, and you've got a little bit of mesh either side. I'll hold that up. Oh, come on camera. There we go. A little bit of torn mesh either side. So she's got some lovely detail. And as I say, that white just kind of like brings her forward. Now the next thing is some glossy accents down here, and I'm going to just sort of like pile it in dots here, and I'm not going to be tidy about how I use those shells. whatever sticks there is going to stick there, and it's going to look, you know, a bit natural. And I haven't opened this bag yet, and sequins are great for having a lot of static. And when you can open the bag, it's a good day. Right, that's done. I'm just going to put my hand in there, and it doesn't bother me where they fall. Where they fall is where they stay. If they're stuck to something, they are. And if they're not, then they're not. I'll put a few more on there, just so that I can press down without getting a load of stuff all over my fingers. And then when I pick it up, we'll find out what's stuck. There. That is what's stuck to the bottom there. And I'm quite happy with that. That's how it stays. That's how it landed naturally. Now, I hope that nothing is too blurred on here. And if not, then, you know, I always take a photograph for the front of the video, so you'll be able to stop and just go and look at the screen. But I'll pick her up. So she's cute, but a little bit more grown up because of the colours that we've used. Let's get focused. Right, we've got the stamp there. We've got the gorgeous colour of the walnut ink crystals. So as I said before, if you're a junk journaler or you like vintage, do get yourself some. These are made by Imagine Crafts. You can get them, or Sukineko, which is a Japanese company. And these crystals, as well as the Brusho crystals, they all come from Germany. I don't know why that is. I think it's possibly the only country that makes them. So walnut ink crystals, just get yourself some. They will last you forever, and you can do amazing vintage and distressed pieces. So I digressed, didn't I? Yeah, lovely torn pieces using the same paper there, again for the tail and for the crown, the same glitter that's on the lovely sort of mermaid fishnet behind is on the little seashell bra. And then you've just got a few sequins that have just been cast on the bottom into some glossy accents. Au naturel, I'll say. Where they landed is where they stayed. Right, I do thank you so much for joining me today. As usual, you know I'm always watching my clock. And tomorrow I'm going to be up with a personal haul, and if I can make some projects for that, then I will certainly do it. Or if not, I will just cut a few bits and bobs out just to show you. Because, I mean, I ordered them for myself and I really like them. So I just want to share them. So anyway, there is the mermaid. And thank you so much for watching. As usual, all links below. Bye.